Imagine a courtroom filled with teenagers, not arguing over curfew violations or schoolyard squabbles, but standing up to governments, fossil fuel giants, and outdated laws. Welcome to the world of youth climate litigation, a realm where the future is not just a passive observer, but an active participant demanding justice. These young warriors are armed not with swords, but with the Constitution, science, and an unwavering belief that the planet deserves better. The legal battlefield. At the intersection of youth activism and environmental justice lies climate litigation, a legal weapon wielded by those who won't wait around for adults to sort out the mess. For the past decade, we've witnessed a growing number of lawsuits where young people have sued governments for their failure to protect the planet and future generations from the devastating effects of climate change. These legal challenges have brought attention to the importance of constitutional rights and environmental protection. While the road to justice may be long and difficult, these cases show us that courts have become critical battlegrounds for shaping climate policy. Young activists have taken bold action, armed with data, science, and a sense of urgency, and many have won, or at least sparked change. These victories, however small they may seem, signal a shift in how we view environmental law and human rights, a constitutional victory. The year 2023 will go down in history for a groundbreaking legal decision in Helv, Montana, a case where 16 young Montanans sued their state government. The youth plaintiffs argued that the state's promotion of fossil fuel extraction violated their constitutional rights to a clean and healthful environment. In a historic 6-1 decision, the Montana Supreme Court sided with the plaintiffs, affirming that the Montana Constitution guarantees the right to a stable climate system. This case was monumental because it marked the first time in U.S. legal history that a state's promotion of fossil fuels was deemed unconstitutional based on the right to a healthy climate. The court acknowledged the fundamental connection between environmental health and human well-being, making clear that the Montana government's failure to consider climate impacts in its policymaking was a violation of its constitutional obligations. The ruling did not just stop at declaring the state's policies unconstitutional. It sparked a national conversation about whether other states, as well as the federal government, should be held to similar standards. Several other youth-led lawsuits inspired by this case are now underway in states like Hawaii and New Mexico, with activists demanding that their governments recognize the climate crisis and take urgent action. Moreover, the case has had international ramifications, encouraging activists in other countries to use similar legal frameworks to challenge governments on their climate policies. The Helv, Montana case is more than just a legal victory. It's a symbol of the power of youth activism and how the courts can be an ally in the fight for climate justice, a decade-long struggle. In 2015, a group of 21 young plaintiffs, ranging in age from 8 to 19 at the time, filed the lawsuit against the U.S. government, alleging that its actions, particularly its promotion of fossil fuels, violated their constitutional rights to life, liberty, and property. The case, Juliana v. United States, became a significant symbol of the growing youth-led climate movement, challenging the U.S. government to confront its role in causing climate change. Though the plaintiffs in Juliana never got the legal victory they sought, the case has played an important role in raising awareness of climate issues and challenging government inaction. The legal battle dragged on for years, and after several court rulings, in 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear the case, effectively ending the lawsuit. However, this is not the end of the story. The plaintiffs have remained vocal in the climate movement, working to ensure that their case will continue to inspire future generations of activists. The Juliana case also demonstrated the complex relationship between the judiciary and the executive branch. While the plaintiffs argued that the U.S. government's inaction on climate change violated their constitutional rights, the courts were reluctant to interfere in such political decisions. The case highlights a key challenge for climate litigants: how to convince courts that the climate crisis constitutes a direct and urgent threat to individual rights and that government action, or lack thereof, should be subject to legal scrutiny. Though Juliana ended without a court victory, its legacy endures in the growing network of youth activists and in the increasing focus on climate change as a human rights issue. It has also influenced subsequent cases, such as Helv v. Montana, showing that the fight for climate justice is far from over. Youth-led climate lawsuits worldwide. The youth climate movement isn't just confined to the U.S. Around the world, young people are increasingly taking their governments to court, demanding climate action. In South Korea, a group of children sued the government, claiming its inadequate climate policies violated their constitutional rights to a clean environment. In 2024, South Korea's constitutional court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, marking a significant milestone for youth-led climate litigation in Asia. Similarly, in the Netherlands, the Urgenda case became a watershed moment in global climate litigation. In this case, the Urgenda Foundation, representing over 800 citizens, filed the lawsuit against the Dutch government, demanding that it take more aggressive action to reduce carbon emissions. In 2019, the Dutch Supreme Court ruled that the government was required to cut emissions by 25% by 2020, a ruling that has since become a global example of how litigation can force governments to act on climate change. These cases demonstrate that the EU-led climate litigation movement is gaining momentum not just in the US, but across the globe. They underscore the international nature of the climate crisis and the growing realization that governments everywhere have a responsibility to protect the environment for future generations. More than just plaintiffs, youth activists bring a unique and compelling perspective to climate litigation. Many of these plaintiffs, such as those in Helv, Montana, and Juliana, the United States, have lived through the environmental changes they are fighting against. Their personal stories, from experiencing extreme weather events like wildfires, floods, and droughts, to witnessing the displacement of entire communities, add a human element to the legal proceedings. This personal connection makes their cases resonate more deeply with the public and judges alike. It's one thing to read about rising sea levels in a scientific report, but it's another to hear from a young person who has seen their community destroyed by flooding or wildfires. These stories not only strengthen their legal claims, but also amplify the urgency of climate action. Moreover, the involvement of youth in climate litigation highlights an essential aspect of climate justice: intergenerational responsibility. Young people are not just fighting for their own futures, they are demanding that current generations be held accountable for the harm they have caused. This intergenerational activism reflects a broader global shift, where climate justice is increasingly seen as a matter of human rights, not just environmental protection. Legal and political hurdles. Despite the successes of youth climate litigation, these legal battles are far from over, and the challenges remain substantial. One of the biggest hurdles is the legal system's reluctance to take climate change seriously as a matter of constitutional rights. Courts have shown resistance to accepting climate change as a constitutional issue, often citing political questions that should be resolved by elected officials, not by the judiciary. This has led to many cases being dismissed or delayed, leaving young plaintiffs in limbo. Political opposition also plays a significant role. In many countries, climate action is a highly politicized issue, and legal rulings can become a flashpoint for ideological conflict. For example, after the Helv, Montana ruling, some Republican lawmakers in the state criticized the decision, arguing that it could lead to endless lawsuits that might harm the state's economy. This pushback highlights the tension between economic interests and environmental protection. Nonetheless, despite these challenges, the youth movement shows no signs of slowing down. Even in the face of legal setbacks, youth activists continue to mobilize, educate, and advocate for change. The ongoing rise of climate litigation around the world demonstrates that, although courts may not always be the final answer, they play a crucial role in pushing governments to take responsibility. Beyond the courtroom, even in cases where youth activists do not win outright legal victories, their efforts often lead to tangible changes in policy and public perception. For example, the lawsuit filed by 13 young people in Hawaii led to a landmark settlement where the state government agreed to pursue a zero-emissions transportation policy by 2045. Similarly, the Urgenda case in the Netherlands not only forced the government to cut emissions, but also raised awareness about the need for more ambitious climate action. These victories, whether in the courtroom or the policy arena, illustrate the far-reaching impact of youth climate litigation. By taking governments to court, young people are not only demanding action, they're inspiring entire generations to rethink their relationship with the environment. And that's a wrap. If you found this deep dive into youth-led climate litigation as inspiring as we did, don't forget to hit that like and make sure to subscribe. Until next time, stay awesome, stay motivated, and keep fighting for change, because the future is in your hands.